Great. So welcome everyone. Just a reminder of gear. I've suggested, or I've requested actually, a chair for today's practice. If you have a dining room chair, a sofa chair would be fine, but something a little bit more sturdy would be better. And then a couple of blankets. And actually, just as we get started, let's pre-roll our bolster. Over the next few weeks, as we move towards the end of the year, we're going to slow things right down. As of next week and the week after, we'll do a much more restorative theme. So we'll start to gather more and more props as we go. So just taking your bed pillow, if you have it handy, and one of your blankets, and just like we did last week, we'll pre-roll our bolster. We actually don't need this until a little later on, but at least it's all ready there. And I'm just putting my pillow on the edge of my blanket, rolling it. So I'm basically folding it in half as I roll my pillow inside my blanket, making a bolster-like shape. And just placing it somewhere out of the way for the time being. And then I've asked you to bring a scarf or a belt and just have that close by your mat for later. And you may want a sofa cushion as well for one part of the session. So I'll just give you a moment to gather more things if you need to. And then we'll start sitting on a chair today. And sit however you feel most comfortable. If you're really fatigued, or if you've got back pain and if sitting upright doesn't work for you today, then shimmy your way right back to the edge, the back of the seat, so you could use the back support. But otherwise, if it feels okay to, shimmying forwards to the front of your chair, so your spine can be self-supported and elongated, and just placing the feet where feels comfortable. Heels preferably underneath the knees, feet about hip distance apart. So today's class will be focused on postures and breathing practices and movements that cool and calm not only the body but also the mind. So some of these practices are really helpful for this kind of weather that we're having, where it can be very sticky and humid, particularly as we move more into the hotter months. So there's a lovely breathing practice that you may find helpful, which I'll talk about a little more fully when we come into it. And then lots of postures, mostly forward bend postures, which are known for their calming and cooling mental calming and cooling qualities and effects. So anyone with lower back pain or any history of disc issues, or kyphosis, where there's a more defined upper back flexion or rounding, any of those back conditions in this sequence, you may like to leave a little bit of forward bending out, or you might like to bring more extension, more upper back bend between the postures, but hopefully it will feel fairly balanced. But as always, please honour where you are at today and do what feels right for your body. I don't know how it feels in your body today, so please take authority over that. And just come and sit, just arrive in your seated shape. Close your eyes if you'd like to, or soften your gaze. Your hands on your thighs or in your lap, and just taking a moment to pause and to arrive. So inviting your attention to sink downwards, sense of dropping your weight down into the seat and down into the ground. So the attention and the energy is sinking downwards away from the momentum of the mind and into your physical shape. Feel your physical shape here, the outline of your body, the structure of your body, skeleton, the bones holding and supporting the weight of your body. You feel the feet on the ground and the shape of your legs as you scan upwards through the shape of the legs and arrive at the pelvic bowl. Resting your attention gently on the feeling of your pelvis meeting your chair, sensing into the weight that you feel on your sit bones as they meet the chair, dropping your weight downwards. And taking the opportunity to review how you are feeling today. Noticing your energy level this morning. You feel full of beans, light, energized. Do you feel very heavy, lethargic, tired, exhausted perhaps? Or maybe it's somewhere in between. No judgment here. It is what it is after all. Can you simply be with your energy quality this morning, energy level? And just noticing your body's temperature, an overall flavour of warmth or coolness, hot or cold. No judgment, just noticing. And how about the air around your body? How is the temperature of the air? Does it feel warm, sticky, cool? Just noticing. Sensing back into your whole body again. And with that same quality of sinking your weight downwards, could you also bring a lightness to your shoulders as you draw them up towards the ears? And then sinking them down towards the floor. And if you'd like to, the next time you do this, you could inhale and draw the shoulder blades up. And exhale, sinking them down. One more if you'd like to. Simultaneously, could you feel the weight of your body and its contact with the chair and the floor? And then a lightness through the skull and the head as you feel the tip of your nose. Lightness in the skull of the head as you feel the tip of your nose and starting to very gently circle the nose in space. Feeling the felt sense of movement in the neck. If there's any feelings of dizziness at all, then open the eyes or make the circle smaller. Weighting down through the lower body as you bring lightness, floating movements to the head and the skull. You could change direction when you're ready. More circles. And if there's any other movements you're feeling drawn to doing with the head and the neck, and even the shoulders, then go for it. Feeling into this upper part of your body as you allow the lower part to sink the ground. and coming to neutral when you're ready. Lifting your arms up to shoulder height or over the head if you'd like to. And then sinking them down through the center line of your body as you drop the chin towards the chest and start to roll down the spine. You might just come a little way to begin with before restacking the spine. And if that felt okay, you could take that again, maybe inhaling the arms out or up. And then exhaling as you draw the chin towards the chest and start your spinal roll. Just take it really small initially. You could continue on with the arm raising, or you could just stick to the spinal rolls. The spinal rolls might get a little bigger, you might go a little lower, you might not. Use the hands on the thighs for support, or you might roll all the way down into your full forward bend. Just briefly, or pressing down through your feet and rising back up. And do make this your own. If you'd like to spend a little longer rolling down, if you'd like to take the arm movement out, then please go for it. At some point you might like to just hang over your legs briefly. That might be with the hands supporting the spine, or it might be the chest resting forwards on the thighs, letting the head hang down, breathing into your back, softening into the front of your body, opening the back body. Pressing downwards through your feet when you're ready to come up. And taking one more round if you'd like to, or finishing the round that you're on before returning back to sitting. As you return back to sitting, sensing into the weight and the attention dropping downwards into the support of the legs and the pelvis. Just pause here for a moment, feel the body being breathed, allow the breath to be natural. And just sensing into your experience as your body breathes. No controlling the breath. I'm going to invite you to explore a breathing practice called Shitali today. And we did it together sort of more in the depth of summer last year, sort of January, February time, I believe. Now, this can be a really helpful practice for hot weather, but also hot flushes. I know sometimes treatments, the symptoms can be hot flushes out of the blue, and also at different stages of our lives, they can become more prominent. So this practice can be a nice little tool if it resonates with you. Now, the practice requires, Shitali practice requires the ability to curl your tongue, like so. And that is possible for some of us and not for others. So there is a variation that you can do, which is Shitkali, I believe, and it has the same effect. And so as I teach the Shitali with the curled tongue, those that cannot curl their tongue would do the same just with their teeth, just gently touching, and their tongue just resting on the bottom of the mouth. And the intention here is to draw the breath in over the coolness of the tongue, which then cools the air as it comes into the body. So I'll demonstrate down here so you might be able to see a little clearer. So Shitali with the curled tongue, we breathe in through a little gap through the curled tongue. And then we just breathe out naturally through the nostrils if possible, through the mouth if needed. So breathing in through the curled tongue, breathing out naturally. Now Shitali, just the same, just through the teeth. And you'll feel the coolness of the air coming through the teeth, over the tongue and into the respiratory passages. Now, you continue to explore this practice, breathing in through either the curled tongue or through the teeth, breathing out naturally. For any time the breath feels labored or really strained, please just come back to natural breath. As you explore this pranayama practice, can you be aware of the temperature of the breath entering your body? What effect does that have on the inner feeling within the body? So having a slightly broadened attention for the whole physical experience through this breathing practice. Perhaps taking another 3 rounds or so. And then leaving that be. Perhaps closing the eyes or dropping the gaze and just taking a brief pause to check in with how you feel after that breathing practice. Noticing any shift in temperature, and it may not feel obvious straight away. Any sense of cooling or calming of the mind. One of the benefits of that breathing practice is a encouragement for us to move more into the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, the restful section or segment. And slowly, when you feel ready to, I invite you to come and lie down on the floor. You might like to put a cushion or a blanket underneath your head and half next to your scarf or your belt. And if you do have something underneath your head, then could it be fairly low? We will do a little bridge, moving bridge shortly. So it's best not to have the head too high for that practice. And if you'd like to, actually before we move, just arrive. I'm just going to give you a moment just to land on the ground. Feeling the coolness or the warmth of the ground beneath your skin. And inviting a sense of melting into that. Lower rib cage, dropping and sinking downwards. Belly nice and soft. And now if you'd like to, drawing one knee at a time into the body. And just taking a couple of apanasanas, so inhaling the legs away, just floating them slightly away from the body, exhaling, gently drawing them back in, softening the lower back to the floor, squeezing into the abdomen gently. You might even exhale out of the mouth as a sort of sigh-like exhale. One more. And when you're finished, placing the feet back down onto the floor and having the heels fairly directly underneath the knees. If your head is high, then lower it slightly and start to press down through the feet to curl the lower back onto the floor. And then starting to peel the vertebrae off just a little way to begin with, maybe just to the lower ribs before rolling back down. And continuing this warming movement, just starting to engage the backs of the legs, the back muscles. As we warm the body, preparing it for future postures and movements. And it might be that the spine and the pelvis move away from the floor a little more each time, or they might not. If the energy is very low this morning, then I recommend that you just stay low to the ground. Just stay very little, still engaging the back surface muscles. And careful of the neck if you are coming higher. You need to keep a little gap between the chin and the chest. Keep the throat open. And maybe just taking one more moving bridge posture in your own time. As you perhaps sense the warming of the back, whole back surface area of the body. And once you finish, just extending the legs out and just taking a brief rest. Letting gravity take the weight of your legs. So the legs just succumb to rest. No effort in the legs here. Couple of breaths here, releasing the effort in the body. When you're ready, bending your knees once more. Taking your scarf and placing the ball of your foot in the middle of your scarf, thereabouts. The knee bent. And then gently just start to extend the back of the right leg. Now, you're probably not very warm yet, so I really encourage you just to go very gently here. We're just using this as a preparatory posture rather than a deep stretch. So could the placement of your leg be a very sustained position? It's one that you could hold for a while if you needed to. So we're not looking for a really strong sensation down the back of the leg here. Finding a place for your arms where your shoulders can be on the floor, shoulder blades can be relaxed on the ground. And you might like to just bend the right knee, inches, and then press through the ball and the heel of the foot. Bring a bit of movement into the posture. Opening through the back body. And then if you'd like to here, moving into some internal and external rotation of the thigh. So moving from the thigh rather than the foot, but you'll see the movement in the foot. And it's a little bit like you've got a flashlight attached to the back of your knee, and like a lighthouse, you're scanning around the horizon. So it's the movement comes from the thigh in the hip joint. And we're just internally and externally rotating that thigh. A couple of times before coming back to neutral, back to heel parallel with the ceiling. And when you're ready, bending the right knee, releasing the strap, placing the foot onto the floor. And finding your way onto your second side. Again, we're treating this more of as a warm-up than a final destination. So really just finding a place, an opening that feels sustainable, feels fairly restful rather than strong. And just be here with patience, without an agenda. Gently opening through the back of the left leg, softening your shoulder blades on the ground, keeping the arms as restful as possible. And you might like to just soften the left knee a couple of times, pressing back through the heel and the ball of the foot. And then if you'd like to, taking that lighthouse-like movement as you internally, externally rotate the thigh. Keeping it nice and gentle. And then just coming back to straight, parallel, and releasing the leg. And if you'd like to, I'm just having an urge to just have a little shake out here, so you might feel the same. If you'd like to just have a little shake around of the thighs and the calves and the feet before lowering them down to the floor, maybe even extending them away completely. Just taking a pause here. And just before we come off the ground, there's an invitation to take some rotations in the spine. So if you'd like to come up and take the feet to the floor again, the feet quite wide, and just gently lowering the legs to the right side, spiraling the spine, and then the left side. The arms could be out to the side, they could be low down by your body or lower down, but out of the way of the legs. And the legs might not come very far at all. It might just be a really minute movement where you're just gently massaging into the outer thighs and bringing a very soft spiral to the spine. Or if you're feeling drawn to taking the legs a little bit further, then that might be pleasant. And anything else here that you would like to do, whether that's just coming back to neutral, whether that's drawing your knees in towards your body again. Just finding some sort of center before we come off the floor. So that might be constructive rest. It might be Apanasana with the knees in towards the body, some kind of symmetrical shape. And in your own time, when you feel ready to, starting to peel your way off the floor. Nice and slowly. And there is an invitation to come up into a supported forward bend in standing. And then we'll gradually move our way back down to the floor to sitting and then lying again. If that doesn't feel appropriate for you today, there's always the invitation to take a child's pose or a different forward bend that's not standing. But if you feel okay to come all the way to standing, having your chair there in front of you, this is going to be our support. And then taking your sofa cushion, if you'd like, or a blanket or both onto your chair. And now we want the height of the support here to support the head when we come into the forward bend. So you may need to adjust that as you come into this. I'm going to start about a foot and probably a foot and a half, 2 feet away from my chair as I bend forwards. I'm going to use the support of the chair to come forwards. And I'm finding a place to rest my head, sort of hairline, maybe slightly above the hairline. It depends, depends a couple of things really, but I find it most beneficial on the hairline or slightly behind. And I'm just going to adjust my feet so that they come underneath my pelvis. My arms are over my head here, but some of you might be more comfortable with your hands down on the legs of the chair. It kind of depends on what chair you have. And the aim here is to find a place that feels fairly comfortable to hold for a few breaths. Now, you might widen your feet if getting the head to the chair is challenging, but have the height of the chair as high as necessary to support the head. So even if you've got a book, a pillow, a cushion, as long as it's stable, then it can be as high as you need it to be. And just arrive here, sinking the weight down through your feet. And then a lightness to the spine and to the head. Can you sense, could you imagine that all of the tension, all of the heat can sink out of the head and into that support with every exhale that you take. You might even sigh out of the mouth to help release any heat and tension. And of course, at any time you feel ready to come up, please do come up. Anytime you need to bend your knees more, bend your knees more. You have a sense of lengthening through the lower back rather than a real deep rounding through the lower back, as if you're sticking your bottom out behind you. slowing down. To come up, use your hands on your chair if you'd like. Press yourself back up. And before we come all the way up, you may like to take the hands to the chair, the seat of the chair, and step yourself back into a standing downward facing dog. So we're lengthening through the torso, through the arms, through the backs of the legs. The backs of the legs might be bent. And coming up very slowly. So walking the feet in slowly, letting the blood slowly come out of the head. And you might sit down on your chair if you get lightheaded, or you might just pause and standing for a moment. Maybe even sensing the blood dropping downwards through the body, out of the head, down to the heart, down towards the belly. So some seated forward bends. You may like to sit on a cushion or a blanket. And actually something I was exploring earlier, we've already made our bolster for this next supported posture, but because our bolster is homemade, then it can be helpful to tie it. So you could take your scarf or your belt and just experiment, sort of just a way of tying the blanket around the pillow to make it a little bit more stable. But preferably this knot is going to be away from the front of your bolster. So there might be a little bit of height or strap over the front of your bolster, but at the back your knot is out the way. So have that close by and come and sit down on your cushion in front of your chair. Thinking which way around I'm going to do this. And taking your right leg forwards. So coming into a Janushasana and bringing the left foot into the right leg. So if when you bend your left knee, you feel that you need some support under it, then use your blanket or anything that you can grab there to place underneath your left knee. Maybe I should go on a diagonal, would that be easier to see? Yeah, that might be easier. And that support underneath your pelvis is simply there to help elongate your pelvis forwards or gently shift your pelvis forwards. So what we're trying to avoid here is a sinking back of the lower back and sinking onto the back of the sit bones. We'd like to be right on top of the sit bones, even forwards of the sit bones. Sorry, I'm just getting myself adjusted here. Put the cushion around that way. So support underneath the left knee if you'd like it. Sitting right on top of your sit bones. And then if you can, bring your chair in towards you. So you've got that extra closeness. And I'm going to use my bolster on you could either put it on your right thigh, or you could put it right in the middle of your pelvis. So you can play around with what feels most supportive there. And I'm going to nestle it right in to my hip and my body and my belly, and then hug the bolster. You might just need to experiment with how close you bring your chair and also where you place your arms. Some of you might not find it comfortable having your arms like so you might have the arms around the lower bolster. Then experiment with taking the forehead, the bolster, or the side of the head. So finding a place that works for you and nestling in. And there are lots of benefits written about these forward bending postures, but I'd like you to stay present with what you're experiencing. And if there is any triggered pain from this posture, or if there's somewhere in your body that isn't really feeling quite right, then please do adjust it or come out of it if that feels necessary. But sinking down into this posture, if that feels comfortable. And sensing into the opening in the back body, opening in the back of the rib cage. Can you soften down through your lower belly so the abdomen is soft and pliable? In this forward bend, as the head is supported, sinking your attention down through the body, all the way down through the chest, and residing in the abdomen, resting in the abdominal bowl. Body breathing how it needs to breathe here. As you sink your weight a little more fully into this support, there is a slight element of alertness through the legs. The right leg is gently active to stabilize the lower body. Let the upper body really sink into that support, really yield, receive that support. And when you feel ready to start your exit out, then do so slowly. You might just lift the head gently first. And sitting upright, finding your way over to your second side. So using your knee support if that feels necessary here. Bending the right knee so the foot comes to the inner left thigh. And then your chair over the top of the leg if possible. If that's not possible, you might have the chair slightly to the side, but preferably on top so that you can come right over the front of that leg. Good. So taking your time to set yourself up. If your head was turned to the right on the first side, turn it to the left this time, or vice versa. And as you come into the posture, just checking that you're right on top of the sit bones or towards the front of your sit bones, rather than sinking backwards, sinking back and then folding forwards. Getting a sense of lengthening through the lower back, lengthening through and out of the pelvis. And it can just feel so comforting having that support through the front of the body, that feedback through the front of the heart and the abdominal organs. There is some protection there, some safety. So from that recognition, could there be a little more softening, a little more nestling into this forward bend? Attention, energy sinking downwards towards the belly. Dropping downwards to the abdominal bowl. As you keep a little bit of activation, a little bit of alertness through the legs to stabilize this posture, this forward bend. A couple more breaths here if that feels suitable. Sensing the breathing body in the back surface of your body. And slowly, gently starting to make your way out. Just a symmetrical or a more symmetrical posture you could do while you're down here is to take the feet open. And they don't need to be open very far at all, just enough to have your chair ready. And then again, I mean, you could use your bolster here. When I do it, it kind of sinks down to the floor. So you could use a blanket on top and then a bolster. Oh, that's quite nice actually. You can just hug around the lower bolster. Or you might prefer just to rest on your chair without the bolster. Maybe even that similar head position we did in our standing posture, where the support comes to the forehead, the hairline. So experiment with where you could place your hands so it feels comfortable. They might just be resting on the legs. You might have your bolster over your thighs, so your arms rest over the bolster. Head rests on the chair. Just imagine as you sink the weight of your head into that support and release the tension from the head. Sense of letting go of any heaviness in the head. Releasing the worry or the anxious quality of thoughts. As you feel that support, that holding, that felt sense of receiving support through the body. This one you may not want to spend quite as long at. It feels a little stronger down the outer legs or the inner thighs. Then you might feel ready shortly to come out. Might have come out already. And just hugging the knees in towards the body, taking a hug of the legs, falling into a little ball. Might even pull the upper back backwards slightly. And then if you'd like to, setting yourself up for legs up chair. If you feel if there has been any subtle congestion in the head and the forward bends have built up any felt sense of pressure in the head, then you might prefer just to be flat for your relaxation. But if you're feeling the want to come upside down, and that could be on varying levels, so you could use your bolster for your pelvis to raise your pelvis up higher than your heart, and have that support for your ankles if you'd like. I like to have a little raised section at the back for my ankles. However, if you've got sensitivity in the belly, if you're menstruating, or if there's any pressure in the head, if there's a head cold developing, then you might prefer just to leave the bolster out of this and just keep the pelvis flat on the floor. You might use a blanket underneath the pelvis instead. Or you might choose just to come into a vanilla-y flavoured shavasana, maybe the legs over your bolster. So a few options there. If you're coming into legs up chair and the pelvis is on the floor, then you might stay here for the duration of the practice. So make sure that you're nice and comfortable, you're warm enough. If the pelvis is raised up, then you might just spend 5 or so minutes here and then decide to come into a more neutral rest. And then if you're coming into your Shavasana, lying flat on your back with your legs over a bolster perhaps and a cushion underneath the head, then again set yourself up for your final rest. So bring any blankets, bring anything to place over your eyes if you'd like to block out the light. That can be really helpful for enabling the nervous system to settle, to rest. And just having the back flat on the floor in this legs up chair posture can be just so soothing for the lower back. Having that contact, that support in the lower back. And whatever posture you are coming into and settling into, just take a brief scan for yourself that the jaw isn't clenched and that the belly is soft. And just to settle here, you may like to just enter into your rest by taking some conscious extended exhalations. That might just be a sigh-like exhale. That could be a golden thread breath, a little bit like our Hu breath when we breathe in. And we blow out as if blowing out through a straw. Without the closing of the back of the throat. Whatever you're doing, just a sigh-like exhale or a more lengthened straw breathing exhale. Taking 2 or 3, 4, however many you'd like to. And just arriving in this invited rest. Perhaps just reflecting that there really is nothing that needs to be done here. Leave all the attending to the side. And appreciating this time is for you to do nothing. And at first that can feel a little daunting, or there might be an underlying quality of restlessness in the background. But this is such an essential part to our well-being, is to have this capacity to be without any agenda. So if there is restlessness, if there is unease, how might it be to very gently allow it to be there by turning towards it, being with it, and having a trust that as you leave everything alone, as you leave everything to be as it is, then rest will come, settling will happen. leaving everything to be as it is, without resisting it or gripping it. Sinking into a deeper place of awareness now, beyond conceptual thoughts. Softening the area of the heart, all the nerves that pathway through this area of your body. Or even take another 2 or 3 sigh-like exhales, as if releasing charge or tension from the area of your heart. All the nerves around it. There's anywhere else in your body that you feel there is resistance or tension, maybe in the solar plexus or the abdomen or the head, then you might do the same. You might imagine the breath expanding or feeling the breath expanding that area. And then sighing it out, sighing out the tension, the charge, the heat. And simply allowing the body to breathe. Witnessing that arising and passing of breath as you sink into the background of your experience. Being completely present with the breathing body. And as the body quietens, it slows down. You notice awareness itself. That realm of being where everything arises from and passes back into. Each one of these breaths arising from that source broad and spacious awareness. Natural ground of your being that is consistently present. That resides in the background. Sinking into that place, that space, relaxing fully into it as you leave everything else alone. and striving, no end goal, just a quality of sinking downwards and letting go. Letting go into that spacious awareness. The very ground of your being. Abiding here, resting here. Within any feelings of wholeness, sense of coming home. Abiding here. This spacious, broad ground of your being, source of each arising breath. Feeling your breath moving your body, rocking your body, shifting and changing the shape of your body one breath at a time. Feeling again the weight of your body on the ground. Sense into the temperature of the ground beneath your body. Does it feel cool or warm? Sensing into the shape of your body. How does the temperature feel on the outer body, skin of the body, outer layer of your body? What is the temperature? And then how about the inner realm of your body? Perhaps sensing the temperature of the core of your body. Is it cool? Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it hot? And before you begin to move again, just sensing into your whole experience here towards the end of your practice. And reviewing how you feel, non-judgmentally. Has there been any shifts throughout your practice today? Does the quality of energy, does the energy level feel different? Is there a sense of calm or coolness or quiet? in the body or the mind. Feel ready to, starting to extend the fingers, lengthen through the hands, and then squeezing the fingers gently. Inhaling, expanding the fingers, squeezing the fingers as you exhale. And inviting any natural movements back into your body again. Moving slowly and gently. Really do take your time. If you don't feel ready to finish your practice yet, then don't. Just close the screen and continue on. When you do feel ready to come out, I recommend coming to some sort of seated shape, and that can be on the floor and that can be on your chair. Whenever you feel ready to do so, just closing your practice sitting. And as you come to sit, could you imagine your body like a great stone, a great rock in a forest that hasn't moved for thousands of years, stable and grounded, still. And if you'd like to, you could bring the hands together in front of your heart. And just appreciating this time you've spent for yourself today. Not just for yourself, but for those around you. Appreciating the benefits of just slowing down, having an agenda, meeting yourself where you are, with kindness, sending that gratitude, that thank you towards yourself. Namaste.